Esta vez tengo el placer de presentar a Melanie Maddox. Melanie Maddox es Agile Coach de BBVA, USA, en Birmingham, Alabama. Es una defensora de las metodologías ágiles y el design thinking, poniendo al usuario empleado primero en desarrollar soluciones para transformar la cultura y aumentar el compromiso en el lugar de trabajo. Durante sus más de 20 años de carrera, ha gestionado iniciativas de liderazgo y desarrollo de empleados y ha creado el programa Career Foundation en BBVA Compass, proporcionando una experiencia de incorporación rotativa para nuevos graduados universitarios y pasantes. Ha pasado la mayor parte de su carrera en el campo del aprendizaje y el desarrollo como iniciadora de carrera y mentora de empleados. Melanie es una mentora de American Corporate Partners que ayuda a los veteranos de Estados Unidos, sus cónyuges, en su transición de la fuerza laboral militar a la civil. Cuando no está ayudando a la gente a ser feliz en el trabajo, puedes encontrarla viajando, leyendo un libro, cantando o bailando por Birmingham, Alabama. Ella nos comentará el cómo mantener a los equipos ágiles en la nueva normalidad. ¿Regresamos a la oficina? ¿Nos quedamos alejados por ahora? Una combinación de ambos. No importa cómo se vea su equipo ahora, el ser ágil es un requisito de la nueva normalidad. En esta charla, Melanie nos va a discutir y recomendar algunas prácticas ágiles que se pueden usar con cualquier equipo para ayudarlo a mantenerse conectado con su equipo y mantenerlos motivados y enfocados en brindar valor a sus clientes. Melanie Maddox, Agile Coach at BBVA USA in Birmingham, Alabama, is a champion of Agile methodologies and design thinking, putting the user employee first to develop solutions to transform culture and increase engagement in the workplace. During her more than 20 years career, she has managed leadership and employee development initiatives and created the Career Foundation program and BBVA Compass, providing a rational onboarding experience for new college graduates and interns. She has spent most of her career in the field of learning and development as a career kickstarter and mentor for employers. Melanie is a mentor for American Corporate Partners, assisting U.S. veterans and their spouses and their transition from the military to the civilian workforce. When she's not helping people get happy at work, you can find her traveling, catch up in a good book, singing or dancing around Birmingham, Alabama. Her presentation will be about staying agile leading teams in the new normal. Are you returning to the office, staying remote for now, a combination of both? No matter what your team looks like now, being agile is a requirement of the new normal. In this topic, she talks about recommendation some agile practice that can be used with any teams to help you stay connected with your team and keep them motivated and focused on delivering value for your customers. Adelante, Melanie. Let's go, Melanie. You have 45 minutes for your presentation and answer questions.
Great. Thank you, Janet. Can you hear me okay? I hadn't spoken, so I wanted to make sure my audio is good. I can see you, Karen, so you can give me a thumbs up. Great. All right. Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction. I am Melanie Maddox, and I'm going to be sharing my screen, and we're going to have a little bit of interactivity. We're going to be interactive, so please grab your phones, have them nearby. We're going to do an activity to start. So let me share my screen, and this will stop Karen's, I think. So, all right. I want to do, first we're going to do the activity. So I'm going to share a Menti. I don't know how many of you have done a Menti activity before, but what I want you to do is either use your phone or your laptop to go to this website here, www.menti.com. And when you get there, you'll enter in this code that's at the top. 7684. We've already got somebody in. 7684815. And I changed my question because the earlier presenter had a similar question. Originally, I was asking what country you were in, but I changed my question to say, where are you? Where are you attending from in your house? So, and we can have English and Spanish mixed. That's fine. I'll get Janet to help me with any translations if you don't have the English word.
Okay, don't worry. Pueden entrar a la página de menti.com, Mentimeter, y pueden por favor colocar la pregunta: ¿cuál es el espacio de trabajo? ¿Cuál es el espacio de trabajo al día de hoy?
Perfect. So we've got about 8 people have answered, and we'll give another minute for people to get connected and put in their answers. And as they enter it in, it'll pop up here and make us a word cloud. We've got a lot of people who are attending from their living room. I'm in the living room today, and so glad to have all of you with us. We've got a personal office, very nice. The porch, so here in Alabama, it is cooling off, so it is nice weather, so we're able to be outside more. Usually it's very hot.
Bedroom.
Some people are still in bed, maybe, I don't know, or maybe your office is in the bed. Perfect. All right, I'm going to go to the next question. So if you can get connected, it'll show up the next question for you. So now let's see who you are. What is your role? So are you an Agile coach? Are you a Scrum Master? Are you on an Agile team? Maybe you're just an Agile enthusiast. You just are like Agile. Or maybe you're the friend of someone speaking today and they roped you into attending the session. So we have a number of Agile coaches, a few who are team members. Great. Some Agile enthusiasts. And I really wanted to know kind of breakdown of where, you know, what kind of people we had in the audience, because I'm going to be talking more about leading teams, and at BBVA especially, but you know, personally, I believe that you can be a leader no matter what your role is. So I'm hoping that what I will share with you today will apply to everyone, and it'll inspire you, even just your team members, or even if you're just a fan of Agile, you can use some of the Agile concepts, and you can use some of these things to better communicate with your team and to motivate them and be more productive. So we're pretty evenly split. We've got coaches, team members, and then just Agile enthusiasts. So and we have one Scrum Master. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Scrum, but it's more, these can be applied with any Agile teams. All right, I'm going to go to the next one. And now, how much experience do you have? How long have you been working or interested in Agile? And I think you have a few options there, but oh wow, we've got people who are very experienced, more than 3 years. We have, it's about a little more than half of you are very, very familiar. So that is great. But we have some who are less than a year or 1 to 3 years. So maybe you haven't been doing it that long. What I have found is I have been doing this for a little over 3 years now, working with Agile teams and in the coaching role. But I find that anytime I attend sessions like this one, or even training sessions that I deliver, I always learn something new, because you don't know everything. You don't get to practice everything all of the time. And so it's good to go through things like this to sort of refresh your memory on even some of the basics that you might not have been, not be using every day. All right. So the next one, this slide is not a question yet, but there are, as we've been working remotely, there are definitely some challenges as we are working remotely. So a lot of them are, the lack of face-to-face. We haven't been able to see our team members and our coworkers. We also have a lack of access to information sometimes. That can be a challenge. And people are feeling a little bit isolated. And I think as we have spent more time working remotely, that last one, the social isolation, is really becoming apparent. We're getting out of the habit of really checking in on people. And we had the presentation earlier. They were talking about the check-in and how important that is to really find out how people are doing. We have a couple of people who have liked this, given us a thumbs up. I mean, I think we can all agree it's definitely affecting us mentally and emotionally, that you don't have, when we sign on to meetings, a lot of times we just go straight to the point. Like, what is it that we need to talk about? And we are forgetting that personal check-in. So this next question that I have, another thing, a few more challenges, sorry. Distractions at home. That one is definitely obvious. We have our phones buzzing at us. You might have your cat jumping into the window, or your pets or your kids who are crying in the background, and we have to deal with that. All right, so here's the question. You have some selections on your phone. What have you noticed? We have coaches and we have team members, but for those of you who are just Agile enthusiasts, what 3 things on this list do you think are most needed by your team? What are the things that they are missing that you wish you could provide, that maybe you need to start? So we have regular check-ins, several communication options, which means maybe we can chat, maybe we can meet in person, sometimes you can meet in person, maybe in some locations, but meeting over the phone, over the video, setting rules of engagement, providing some structured ways for social interaction just for fun, or offering encouragement and emotional support. So choose 3 and submit those now. All right, so far the regular and predictable check-ins and the social time, fun social time, those are leading the way. Set rules of engagement, that's definitely important. We'll talk a little bit more about that when I get into the presentation about, having scheduled times with your team. Offering encouragement and emotional support, yes. All of these are good, but I can see that, we definitely have these 3 that are kind of necessary right now, that you guys feel like these are the ones that your team is really missing. at this time. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to a different screen. Thank you guys for participating in my interactive. I'm going to switch over now to the presentation, and we will talk a little bit about what are some things you can do to stay connected with your team. So I'm going to click here, present from beginning. All right, so you've already heard about me, and Janet gave the big introduction at the beginning, but I like to share this because it's what I tell my friends and family, because a lot of times when I say, I'm an Agile coach, they're like, well, what does that mean, Melanie? And so what is an Agile coach? So what I tell them is I help teams get better at whatever they do. Because that's really what it is. It may be different depending on the team, but I help them, so I'm coaching them. And also I want them to get better, which is like a spirit of continuous improvement at whatever they do. So Agile, most of you who have been working with Agile for a long time, you know that it has to do with communication, collaboration, being productive, all of those different things. So anyway, that's a good way to sum it up, and feel free to steal that if you need it to try to explain to someone what you do. We've already done the mentee. So what I want to start with is Agile leadership really is servant leadership. So I'm sure you guys have heard of servant leadership. So I'd love for you to just take a second and in the chat type, what does servant leadership mean to you? When you think of servant leadership, is there a word that comes to mind, or something that, oh, sorry, I was hitting my mouse. But what comes to mind when you see that?
Melanie, could you write a question by chat, please?
Yes, I will write it.
Let's see.
What does servant leadership mean to you? Yes, and Janet, you can put it in, you can do the translation.
Sí. Ya. ¿Qué significa para ustedes el liderazgo servicial? Lo pueden responder en español y le hacemos la traducción. ¿Qué es el liderazgo servicial para ustedes? What does servant leadership mean to you? Vemos también que hay personas de Estados Unidos que puedan participar. Some people of United States who wants to participate for these questions.
Well, great. I see one already, the being there to help and assist, not to tell what's going on. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. Thanks, Bobby, for that. And I'll come back and look and see some more. We've got Pilar, removing impediments that they can't remove by themselves.
We have
getting involved.
Melanie, we have
Yes.
some answers. Some answer is being there to help and assist, not tell. Remove impediments that the team cannot resolve by themselves. To get involvement, teach them how to resolve them too. For Gisela, is an attitude to offer help to others members to help to get the objective. Y Ayudar a las personas. Okay. Stay always ready for the needs of the teams.
Those are great. Those are great answers. So yeah, I mean, servant leadership really is, encompasses all of those things. And we know that in an agile team, especially, it's important, no matter what role you're in, to think of others and to communicate with them. So let's go and continue on. And the next few slides, I have a couple of quotes from people, famous folks. You may recognize some of them, but Ken Blanchard is, very famous author. He wrote a book called The 1 Minute Manager and Servant Leadership in Action. But this quote, I love the part about, servant leadership is all about making the goals clear and then rolling your sleeves up and doing whatever it takes to help people win. And, I definitely agree with that. And one of my coworkers, he loves the second part of this quote. The employees in that situation, they don't work for you, you work for them. And so I think it's very important for leaders, whether you're a coach or a team leader or just on a team, that you really take into account the needs of the team. I think Pilar mentioned, trying to help remove roadblocks. And you're really working for your team. You are trying to, remove any impediments, help them be as productive as they can be. Here's another quote from Nelson Mandela. And this one also makes me think of the Agile coach role. It is better to lead from behind and put others in front, because you can step up to the front when there is danger, or if there are problems that need to be solved. But when you take a back seat and especially celebrate everyone's accomplishments, it's not you who needs to take the credit or the benefit. It is the team. So you can step into the background. All right. The next one, Simon Sinek, one of my favorite authors. He wrote the book, Start With Why. But it's a leader's job not to do the work for others, but to help them figure out how to do it themselves and help them to succeed beyond what they thought was possible. So if you haven't checked out Simon Sinek, he's definitely one. You want to probably check out his TED Talks, but he's a great resource for leaders and leading from whatever role you're in. And I love the part about helping people figure out how to get things done. This is when, as a coach, it's really hard. It's really hard to do this one, because our natural instinct when someone asks us, what do I need to do? How can I solve this problem? As a coach or as a leader, you want to automatically be the one to solve it for them. Well, let me tell you what to do. But what we're saying with servant leadership and with agile leadership is that's not the best way to get the most out of your team. You want to help them to figure out, don't tell them what to do. Let them figure out what needs to come next. And that way they will feel more empowered and they'll be able to take ownership of the problem. This is the last quote, but leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that impact lasts even when you're gone, even when you're not there. So you want them to have that spirit of continual improvement. And if you set up the practices, then they will be able to do it even when you're gone. So the three components that I want to focus on today, or really have you to think about, is that servant leadership really sits right here in the middle of these three concepts. So we have continuous improvement, continuous communication, and continuous learning. And as Agile experts, most of you know that, of course, continuous improvement is at the heart of Agile. Continuous communication, we have lots of ceremonies and practices built in that are part of our team and our routines. And then continuous learning, where we learn and then act on what we find out. And servant leadership is right in the middle. It's like the sweet spot that touches on all three of these things. So I'm going to take each of them one at a time, each of these bubbles, and we'll explore, what can you do as a leader, as a coach, as a team member to really expand on all three of these items. So we'll start with continuous communication. And we encourage full participation from our team. So continuous communication, as we were hearing earlier in the presentation before the break, we need to have those constant check-ins, and we need to make sure that everyone is participating. So that's a little bit challenging during these remote times. So, Janet has been really great today about encouraging us, like when she needs us all on camera, okay, calling us by name, Karen, turn on your camera, Henry, turn on your camera. And you really want to call on people and have that enough trust with your team that they feel comfortable speaking up and participating in whatever team meeting you have. When you do have the continuous communication, then it promotes mutual understanding. So, this section definitely makes me think of all of the ceremonies that we have in Agile. What we were talking about in the mentee, people were saying we really need to have set scheduled times where we're checking in, whether that's the daily meeting or your retrospective meeting. You want to make sure that everyone is on the same page. Continuous communication also promotes inclusive solutions. So the things that you come up with, you want to make sure everyone has had a part in determining what are the solutions. It also fosters shared responsibility, and it facilitates communication between roles and functions inside and outside of the team. So what I mean by that last one is it's important to have your team meetings where you're talking to each other about team issues, but it's also important to schedule regular check-ins with your customers, also with your stakeholders, like people who you are working with. If you're working on a project or an initiative, you always want to have regular communication with those people outside of your team who need to be informed. All right, so the next one is continuous improvement, and I'm going to let all of these bullets come up because I'm not going to read them to you. I don't want to read each individual one, but continuous improvement is the one I'm probably going to spend the most time on today, because I think it's very important for the leader, the coach, the team lead to have that mindset of, why are we even talking about Agile? Why are we even doing Agile? It comes down to continuous improvement. We want to get better. You remember when I tell my friends and family, what do? I help people to get better at whatever it is they're doing. So what you need for that is to look for areas where you can improve, and then figure out a plan of how are we going to address these things, and then let the team operate and find the solution to the problem. And so what I like to bring up in this section is the PDCA, plan, do, check, act, because it really makes me think of the ceremonies, and I really wanted to highlight that for you guys in this continuous improvement section. Because if you're a part of an Agile team, you probably already have some metrics that you are using. Even if you're not on an Agile team, if you're just a regular leader, then you may have some metrics that you are already using to measure whether or not you're successful. But if you don't have metrics, like I don't have metrics, I don't know where to start, a good place to start is to have a retrospective meeting with your team. And most of you in the audience know what a retrospective is, so I won't go into great detail, but all it is just a check-in where you're checking to see what's working and what's not working well with our team. And once you do that, once you have a discussion, then you can decide what is it that we want to improve and how are we going to improve it. So you're making your plan, and then you do it. You take action. You do the work. You say, all right, we're going to try to improve this. You have to set a limited amount of time. You have to set the time for your actions. But then at the end of that time, you get back together and you say, so did we do it? Have we accomplished what we said we were going to? Did it work? And then if it did, you keep doing it. Or if you need to make any adjustments, you adjust at that time. And so a retrospective, I think, solves many, many issues. I could probably do a separate presentation just about retrospectives, but I wanted to highlight a few actual metrics, like things you can use to measure with your team. So you're like, Melanie, what metrics do I use with my team? And the advice I have for you is that one metric does not fit all. I already mentioned a retrospective that you may want to talk to the team and just gather some general information. You may also want to talk to, if you're a coach, you want to talk to the people on the team or the manager to see if they already have something in mind that they want to improve. And then these last ones are experiment and adjust. I mean, you do it, then you work to improve it. You make a plan to improve. And no matter what you choose, you want to make sure what you're doing, that the metrics add value. And last month, if you were able to attend, Pablo talked a lot about metrics, and he talked about adding, not just to have metrics for metrics' sake. You want to make sure that they're the right metrics, because sometimes when people have these KPIs or things in mind, they can start gaming the system. So they may just work to, I'm going to do this just to make our metrics look good. You want to make sure that you are doing the right thing to help your team and your customers. There's a lot of information on this slide, and it's all in English. So I'm not going to ask Janet to, I'm not going to ask you to translate, Janet, but we can share this after the fact with everyone. But I wanted to give you some examples of things, common challenges, which are on the left here, challenges that teams might face. We hear all the time that teams are too busy, or maybe maybe it's the opposite. They don't have enough work to do. Poor predictability. They aren't able to plan appropriately. They keep having things to jump in, and they get assigned lots of things that they haven't planned. Or this one is big, shifting priorities. When everything is important, nothing is important. So how do we tell what we need to work on? Competing demands. You have lots of different people asking things of you. You're dealing with dependencies, or you have customer dissatisfaction. On the right, I've listed some potential metrics that could help with these specific challenges. And I had a couple of formulas that I can share with you, but I thought that might be a little too much detail for today's presentation. But you can definitely Google any of these metrics to get, to find out how to figure these, how to calculate them. But I wanted to give you this that you can definitely take back and use with your team. All right, the final bubble is continuous learning. So let's take a look at this. The Agile leader seeks continuous learning. So if you're attending today, you are obviously a lifelong learner. I mean, you're here on the weekend, so you are developing your own interpersonal skills, but you want to encourage your team to do that too, and to act proactively. And holistic reflection, we mentioned about the retrospectives. Those are so important to, once you start using those metrics, whether they are formulas on more technical aspects, or if you're just using some things that you planned from your retro, you need to start the next planning session with pulling in, like, where are we now based on the continuous improvement items we worked on? What have we learned, and where are we going to go now? Where are we going to go next? So that's very important. And finally, you want to help the team. You want to encourage them in their personal career development. So as they're figuring out what they need to learn next, you can be on the lookout for articles and books. And to me, a leader is one who shares information that's relevant to the challenges you're facing, but then also to just push your team for that constant improvement and personal growth. All right, so let's close with some practical tips for the Agile leader. It's important to give and ask for feedback regularly. And I think that's feedback for yourself, and then also feedback within the team. You always want to give credit and take blame. You don't want to give blame and take credit. So never the reverse. So we talked about how that's that servant leader mindset. You want to give credit to the team. The team is the one doing the work. And then you step up if there's something that needs to be addressed, or an impediment, that you can take ownership of that. I love this one. Show your team it's okay to be human. It's okay to make mistakes. A lot of people, and we're sometimes guilty of always wanting to be perfect, always wanting to have the perfect presentation or the final product. But we need to not be afraid to fail. We need to be open with each other and trust each other, because if you're always showing a finished final polish to your team, then they're going to feel like they have to have that level, that perfection all of the time. And you need to show them that you're vulnerable, that it's okay for them to make mistakes, that life will go on, the world will keep turning. You can learn from it and move on. If you don't know the answer, you definitely need to admit it. Say, I don't know, and try to find out, or find out together. We talked about, this definitely ties back to servant leadership. Listen first, be open. Don't assume that you always have the right answer, because most of the time the team has the answer. You need to go back to the team and listen to them. Be an example of self-care and work-life balance. This one, definitely, I have seen leaders who they talk about how important it is to take breaks and have that work-life balance, but then they turn around and they might send an email at 11:30 at night, or you go in Monday and you have all of these emails from your boss or from that person in charge, and you start to worry. It affects the team. They're like, oh, well, that person was working all weekend. Maybe I have to work late hours and all weekends too. But you don't want to set the wrong example. So you need to lead by example, to show them, that you're taking self-care and balance seriously, and then they will too, and they will be grateful for it. And finally, just adopting the mindset of serving the team, that it's just so important to be in touch with what the team needs from you, and being able to remove those obstacles for them, and to really give them, listen and learn what they need. And the way you do that is you are present. You're very aware. You don't act distracted when you all come together. You have to just be present and available to the team so that you can build that trust with them. All right, that is all that I have. I'm going to stop my sharing and see if we have any questions. Yes, we do have that problem, and one thing that I would recommend, especially if you're trying to schedule time with many different people, if as much as you can, try to plan those events well in advance, because what we're finding in the current environment, in a remote environment, if you're looking at people's calendar, I don't know about you, but everyone's calendar is is just blocked. You can't find any open time. And that has resulted in, now, I don't know if you guys are able to take lunch, but most of the time people schedule meetings during the lunchtime. And so there's no breaks in the day. So this is kind of simple, but if you can know well in advance when you're going to have those meetings, like you were talking about quarterly planning, to go ahead and send those dates out, send those requests out so that people can plan in advance that they need to attend. But, that's not always easy to do. So what we have started doing is trying to record meetings like we're doing today. If people can't attend, then maybe you can record the meetings. But I've also read some articles that are, we talked a little bit about this in our icebreaker at the beginning when we were talking about setting up different channels. Not everything does not have to be a meeting. So maybe, considering what is the topic that you're discussing, is it something that you can just send by a group email, or maybe you can just do a quick chat? Maybe you can have a different format so that you don't have to all be on this at the same time. So hopefully that answers your question, Janet. Those are some tips I have.
Thank you, Melanie. We have 2 questions more.
Okay.
How do leaders move from the questions, how can I help you, to a more active interpretations of teams and team members' needs. Also, how do we measure any metrics for effective implementation of servant leadership?
Great. Yeah, it can sometimes be intimidating if you're the leader and you go to your team and you say, how can I help you? That is a very open question, but it may not be, your team may not give you the answer. They may not know what exactly they need. So that's why it's so important for the leader to be involved in team meetings and to really observe if you see your people getting burnt out, if you see them struggling or they're not productive, then maybe you can make some suggestions about how to help. And then the second part of that question about how do you measure the servant leadership part? I think that's important to get feedback directly from the team members that the leader is working with. Sometimes people talk about a 360 survey. That's like getting answers from the team about how is the leader doing. And I think that would be one way you could do it. I would also, let's see what else for effective implementation of servant leadership. It's not something you can it's not like widgets. You can't measure, okay, I did 4 servant leader things today. That's not really an effective measurement. So I think you would have to rely on looking at making those goals in your planning, like identifying specific action items and then determining, did we do these, yes or no? That's a lot of times people think metrics have to be really complicated. They don't. Like a metric can be, did we do this, yes or no? And then you can have a metrics that also measures, well, we did it, and how well did we do it? Have people rate on a scale of 1 to 5. Yes, it was very, 5, it was very helpful, or 1, it didn't help at all. So those are a few ideas of ways that you can add in some metrics for that leadership component.
Thank you, Melanie. Melanie, we are past the time, but we have one question more. But this is, what are some ways or recommendations to help with continuous learning for the team while working remote? In 30 seconds, please, because we are in the time.
Okay. So continuous learning while you're remote. I know that is a hard one because earlier we were talking about everyone's schedule is already full. So how do you also fit time in for continuous learning? This is just from my personal experience. I try to take some time each day for personal development, and even if you have to do it, think of it as your self-care, your me time. I sometimes listen to audiobooks or podcasts while I am in the car or while I'm exercising, while you're walking or running. You can do that. Also taking time for events like this. Maybe you can't attend the whole session, but you can attend part of it. So I think it's just important to schedule those times for yourself and to not let it get bumped by other things, to make that a priority, make that part of your plan.
Thank you, Melanie. Gracias a todos los participantes. Te agradecemos. We have to say thank you a lot for integrating to the GET community and to be our presenter for today, Melanie. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you, Janet. And I'd be happy to, if anyone wants to reach out to me or connect with any additional questions, I can answer those. And I'd love to hear from you all. Thanks.
Pueden escribir también a través de la comunidad cualquier pregunta para Melanie. You can write in the community page if you want to have a question for Melanie. And Melanie, we can answer you. Thank you, Melanie.